Hello, listeners. You're listening to KRUI 89.7 FM. My name is Amon, News Director here at KRUI. And today we're going to be sitting down with Iowa Representative candidate Taylor Wettach. I said that right, correct?
That's right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mom. Appreciate it.
Yep. Wettach is a seventh generation Iowan, born and raised in Muscatine. He graduated magna cum laude from Georgetown University and acquired his degree in law from New York University. After working as a lawyer for prestigious institutions, including CFR, Simpson Thacher Bartlett, and the Committee on U.S.-China Relations, he returned to Iowa and declared his candidacy for the 2026 Democrat candidate for Iowa's first congressional district to unseat Republican incumbent Marionette Miller Meeks. Great to have you.
And thank you so much for the chance to speak with folks. Really, really excited for doing this. Been a long time in the works. So excited we could get together.
hmm all right, I guess we'll do some introductions. So why are you running for Congress now, and what pushed you from law and policy work into electoral politics?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I always knew I wanted to do public service. That was the focus of everything I've been doing. I grew up here in Muscatine. Learned to listen to folks from all walks of life as a Hy-Vee checkout boy. Learned to work hard from really great public school teachers that pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. But most of all, learned to really try to look out for folks as student representative or school board, as an Eagle Scout. So I always wanted to give back to my community, and that's why I studied public policy. It's why I became a lawyer. And so what happened for me though was I was not playing to run for office. I was trying to do public service in a different way, kind of as a lawyer, going to government, that sort of thing. I had gotten recruited to go into government, got caught up in the Doge freezes originally. Was supposed to take on a position with a top level security clearance, and that happened. And then I was still at my law firm, and then my former firm got targeted by Trump for representing causes people that he disagree with. So, for example, the work that I was doing in support of the rights of refugee youth and families, and the work that other folks were doing in support of voters' rights, but also part of a broader kind of effort that Trump did to hem in powerful law firms with the goal of basically making sure that folks couldn't stand up against him. So that happened for me. I didn't go into government, and then I was still at my firm. My firm got targeted, and they folks of the firm that were leaders of the firm, were not me, decided that they were going to cave to Trump's pressure and cut a deal to do $125 million worth of work in support of administration priorities. I disagree with that decision. I made that known to folks, made the decision to leave the firm. And in the background of all that, I've been working with local Dems, trying to help local Dems do better with younger folks, do better in the rural areas, and see what we can do, watching the situation unfold in our districts and things really getting worse and worse and worse. And so when I made the decision to leave, people said, well, hang on a second, you'd spent your career negotiating with big corporations, with the federal government, you advise folks in Congress on issues like China, tariffs. You've stood up to Trump. Would you consider standing up right now and joining the fight? And my view is that we are at a point where we are 4 to maybe 2 years away from losing our democracy. Like, this is it. This is it. And we need people that will speak truth to power. We need people that will be honest about what's happening, call a spade, really go to Washington and tell Washington that we're going to take back our country, we're going to take back our state, take back our district. So that's my motivation. My feeling was that if I didn't respond to that call right now with everything that's going on in our state, our district, and our country, that I was going to look back and say I could have done something to fight for my community. I could have done something to fight for my country, and I didn't step up. So I think this is a time when people got to decide who they're going to be, and the stakes are too high to just let things keep on going where they are. We need fighters that will step, fight, and speak truth to power.
Mhm. All right. So I guess building off your career prior to politics, you worked as a trade and national security lawyer. From your perspective, how have the Trump era tariffs affected our county's farmers, manufacturers, and exporters?
Yeah, it has been absolutely terrible what's happened. As I mentioned, advise folks in Congress on issues like tariffs and China. I was a trade and national security lawyer. So I know the sausage is made on this, and what we're doing now is not good for anybody. It's a game of chicken, and there's no chicken in anybody's pot because of it. We are ripping away markets rather than building markets. This is bad not only for our farmers, especially with 22% of our economy dependent upon agriculture here in Iowa, but it's really bad for our small businesses because of the knock-on effects, right? If our farmers lose their markets, they're not doing as well, then it cuts our economy. 22% of our economy is dependent upon it, hurts everybody else down the road. And then in terms of consumers as well, right? The knock-on effects are really, really bad for consumers. Iowa has got to be the state that is the most, if not one of, if not the most, one of the most terribly impacted by what's happening by these Trump tariffs. And from day one, I would be ready to fight on that. Our Congress folk, right? Their job is actually to control trade. They have a responsibility under the Constitution to control trade, and they have just completely given up that responsibility to Trump. I'm ready to go to Washington day one and fight like hell to take that responsibility back and make sure we have policies that fight for an economy that give everybody what they're due.
Supporters of the tariffs might rebuttal that they are protecting American industry and reducing our dependence on countries like China. Are those goals you agree with? And if so, what should the U.S. be doing differently than the current administration that wouldn't hurt Iowa's economy and exporters?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good distinguishing point. There is value to tariffs. Tariffs have their value, protecting, for example, national security reliant industries, right? Things that we need to make sure we produce here in our country, or other things that are extremely vital for our country, for our economy, for our national security. But the thing is, these blanket tariffs, those are really what the problem is. The blanket tariffs are the problem because when we completely destroy a market, we don't get that market back easily, right? What's happening right now is because we have essentially told China that we're gonna, have these blanket tariffs against them. They have rerouted their trade markets, and especially when it comes to our agricultural exports, they've instead now decided they're going to get them from other folks. So we can and should have smart tariffs. We should be negotiating hard, and I'd be ready, to leverage my background as somebody that has negotiated hard before against powerful corporations with the federal government. But this is not how we do it. You negotiate in good faith. You use targeted tariffs. You make sure you use tariffs in a way and other negotiating tactics that build toward a deal that expands our markets, not destroys them. Because once they're destroyed, they're really hard to rebuild. So there is a distinguishing point there, and we need people that understand the differences, right? Unlike the Trump administration that is just running at this with these crazy blanket tariffs that do no good for nobody.
Mhm. All right. Jumping into your ethics reform, you've
Okay.
proposed finance reform and independent redistricting as ways to reduce corruption and abuse of power. What specifically would you push for in Congress, and what barriers stand in the way of passing those reforms?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things we need to do. My view is that what has happened with Citizens United in terms of allowing this ridiculous flow of money into our politics is the greatest threat that we're facing today with our democracy. You can follow the chain down, right? Of course, the greatest immediate threat, of course, is a lot of what's happening from Trump land and folks that are really directly threatening our democracy. How do they get there? It's because folks essentially bought the election. It's because we have a system in place that means that folks can buy politics when it should be one vote from one person. So that is completely wrong, and it is one of the biggest focuses that I have. I was proud to roll out the most aggressive anti-corruption plan of anybody running, not only in this district, but across the state of Iowa. I believe that people are looking for fighters that will fight on these issues. And I don't think it's just Democrats, right? I think it's Republicans as well who are concerned with this crazy corruption we're facing right now. We need folks that will go to Washington, that will repeal the decision with Citizens United, that would take a law from Congress. In the long term, it really should be something that we do constitutionally as well, but we need to do that. We need to make laws that get dark money out of politics. We need to make sure that we stop folks in Congress from engaging in stock trading. We've had an SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, for over 100 years at this point, or about 100 years at this point. And to make sure that folks with private information that would allow them to manipulate the stock market can't do that. There's no reason why our leaders in Congress should be getting rich off the private information they're having. It's going to take a lot of work, right? It's going to take folks to actually have that kind of commitment, and it's going to take, frankly, some of the kind of older Democrats coming coming to our side as well on this. A lot of the new Democrats are fighting for this, but we're going to need folks that will come around to join our team on that one to make a lot of these changes. But I think that folks are looking for leaders that will speak truth to power, right? That will take the hard fights and not just say, well, that's going to take 15 years, 20 years. I'm not going to fight on it, which is why I'm proud to be the only candidate in our race to have signed on to End Citizens United. It's an organization that supports ending Citizens United and getting dark money out of politics and big money out of politics. The only candidate in our race to have signed on to their unrigged Washington pledge, committing myself unilaterally to not taking corporate PAC money. I believe that, I mean, it's hard to do that. It's hard to be in that position, especially when my main opponent has refused to make that commitment herself. But I believe that we win not in spite of making the hard choices and doing the right thing. We win because we're making the hard choices and because we're doing the right thing.
Mhm. Um, and am I correct in assuming, I believe you're either first or second in terms of Democrats, in terms of your fundraising, despite refusing PAC money?
That's right. That's right. So I want to show folks that we can do this, right? We don't need to have that sort of money. This started as a super grassroots campaign, but in our first quarter, we raised over $425,000. It was the highest first time fundraise ever for a candidate in this district. It beat the prior record by 28% and put us in the top 20% of all red to blues across the country. So that, I think, is evidence that people believe that if folks are fighting in the right way, that they want to stand with them. And it shows that you don't have to have all the money from the establishment, that you can raise money from folks who really just believe in doing things the right way, that will join your team and fight with you. And we're committed to showing folks that we can win this the right way.
Mhm. AI infrastructure is kind of a recent issue. Data centers and the energy that powers them is becoming a major issue in Iowa communities such as Cedar Rapids and Altoona. What role do you see AI playing in Iowa's economy, and how should the state balance economic growth and the energy use with local concerns?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my view is that we need to encourage innovation, but innovation cannot be haphazard. It can't be unguided. It has to be controlled, and we have to make sure that we protect everybody in the process of it. Um, we should encourage folks to come invest in Iowa, right? But it can't be at the expense of our environment, right? It can't be at the expense of folks losing access to control of their data, and it can't be at the expense of folks whose lives might be on the line or whose interests are at risk from the unchecked control of powerful technology companies, right? So my view is that we need to make sure that we have smart regulations to make sure that everything that's happening is actually in the interest of Iowans. That means making sure that we protect the right for folks to control their own data, right? That means that we make sure that we have guardrails in place to make sure that AI companies are developing in a smart and effective way that does not put folks at risk, and that actually makes sure that the benefits of innovation comes to those that are in society, not just the folks that control that investment, and making sure that we really work on having an environment, right, that works for folks in Iowa for the long term, right? Obviously, there are concerns about data centers in that way as well, concerns about the impact there, and we're already in a really tough spot in terms of the destruction of our water, our air, the threats to our cancer rate, right? Obviously, it's gone through the roof. New occurrence of cancer rate has gone through the roof here in Iowa. So I'm of the view that we can support innovation, we can support investment, but it cannot be at the expense of people's lives. It cannot be at the expense of people's livelihoods. And through smart regulation, we can make sure the benefits come to folks in Iowa and aren't just sucked up by investors, and that folks here aren't expected to take all the risk of that investment.
Mhm. Building off that, AI has kind of become a debate amongst academia and schools about how it should be integrated. What do you think are the most important challenges facing Iowa's public education, and how would you like to see the state address them?
Yeah. So we actually did a video with one of my favorite high school teachers about regulation of AI and engagement of AI in the classroom. So Would encourage folks to give that a look at that to get more of our perspective on that. I mean, obviously, integration in the classroom is important and important for getting folks prepared to engage in a knowledge economy in the future. We need to make sure, of course, that we're doing it with the guardrails we talked about, but I believe it is important in that way. The bigger challenges, though, I'm seeing to education really are the sort of kind of macro challenges of the gutting of funding, right? The restriction of folks' ability to learn in the ways that parents might want them to learn and how kids want to learn themselves. We're seeing when I was growing up, right? Iowa was consistently the first in the nation for public education, consistently the first in the nation in terms of where we are. That was our crown jewel. And somehow within like 15, 16 years, we've own gold ourselves to the point where we are now ranked in the bottom half of the country. There is no excuse for that. And that started with folks gutting funding for public education in our state. It also continued with how we treated our teachers, taking away public funding and putting it basically to private schools, allowing wealthy folks to basically get the benefit of public funding that should be committed to public schools. My view is that public funding belongs in public schools, and it's foundational for having a great workforce. It's foundational for giving everybody the opportunity that they deserve. And I'd be fighting like hell for that from day one. A lot of it has been driven by Republican decisions here in Iowa, but people have to understand too that a lot of it is also coming from the top, coming from the federal government. Our DOE has been destroyed and dismantled against the constitutional requirements for the DOE. That is wrong, right? We need to instead be rebuilding the DOE. We need to be investing in it. We should be expanding support for what the DOE does. The DOE is especially essential in rural areas, in places with underprivileged folks. That's what the DOE is really meant to be. It's meant to raise and level the playing field for folks all across the country. And at a time when far-right Republicans in Iowa are gutting education, we especially need to strengthen the Department of Education at the federal level. And I'd be ready to fight like hell for that from day one.
Mhm. Speaking of funding to rural areas, a lot of rural hospitals in the Midwest are closing. What do you think Congress can realistically do to keep healthcare accessible in small towns and rural communities?
Yeah, there's a lot we can do, a lot we should be doing. My dad was a small town doctor. My grandpa was a small town doctor. So I grew up in a family that was constantly talking about these issues. And, my dad and grandpa made a decision to focus their lives on making sure that everybody, no matter where they lived, no matter their income, would get access to good quality healthcare. Things have been made harder and harder because of decisions of far right politicians to gut funding. I mean, things were already in a tough spot. In my hometown of Muscatine, you got to drive 45 minutes to an hour to deliver a baby. You can't even be born in Muscatine. I think that is absolutely crazy because Muscatine is a town of 25,000 people, right? Like it is not, it's not big, right? But it is not completely rural, right? There's a lot of rural parts to it, but now folks can't even be born here in our town, right? So what do we do to deal with that, right? Well, to start with, things were already in a tough spot, but Miller Meeks has made that a lot worse. With her decision to support the big bad bill, she is taking healthcare away from 66,000 folks directly in our district. That is absolutely wrong. That is 100% wrong because of the Medicaid cuts that are taking place to do that to people. The thing is that I think people are realizing, and we're hearing this all across the district when we're going talking to people, Democrats and independents and Republicans are recognizing that the knock-on effects from those cuts are disastrous for everybody else, even if you're not on Medicaid, right? Medicaid upholds rural hospital systems, rural clinics. So we're looking at having 4 rural hospital systems close thanks to Miller Meeks's vote for the big bad bill, right? That is disgusting, especially because Miller Meeks is a doctor. She made a commitment, right, when she took the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm for folks, right? That is absolutely wrong of her to do that. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she's made the choice to further the interest of providing tax breaks to billionaires and corporations over working Iowans. So day one, I would go in there and I would repeal those cuts, right? We need to repeal those cuts. We should be expanding Medicaid access, not taking it away. We should be building on the ACA, right? We should be expanding access to the tax credit and improving the ACA, not diminishing its impact. And recently, some Republicans voted to support the ACA. Miller Meeks was not one of them. She is, again, a doctor voting against the interests of her constituents, voting against healthcare. But we can't stop there, right? We need to actually expand investment beyond that in terms of encouraging doctors to stay in our communities, right? That's going to require public money. Beyond that, encouraging physicians' assistants, encouraging nurse practitioners to engage and set up shop in our communities. That's very important. I go to a wonderful physician's assistant in my hometown of Muscatine. But we should always be working toward universal healthcare.
Mhm.
There is no reason, there's no reason in the world's richest capitalist democracy, when other capitalist democracies around the world allow their folks to have universal health care, that we cannot afford that as well. It is a choice. It is a choice to deny the fact that people deserve healthcare, that healthcare is a human right, and a choice to make healthcare be determined based on what job you have or what income you have. That is absolutely wrong, and I'd be fighting like hell to make sure folks got universal healthcare.
Mhm. So you want to protect and expand Social Security and access to
Yep,
care.
yep,
How
100%.
would how would you strengthen those programs while still addressing long-term budget and deficit concerns? I know that's a
Yeah,
big debate in Congress right now.
yeah, I appreciate that. Well, what Republicans are doing, despite the fact that they're supposedly conservative, is certainly not supporting that, because the big, beautiful bill went ahead and added $3 trillion to the national deficit. $3 trillion to the national deficit. That is not conservative. That's not helping our economy 1 cent. It's essentially a shell game, right? What they're providing to us is a shell game. They're saying we can't afford to do those things, but by the way, we're going to go ahead and cut tax cuts. We're going to add tax cuts for billionaires. We're going to add tax cuts for the most powerful corporations, and we're going to add to the national deficit. If we go ahead and make sure that the wealthiest in our society, I'm not talking about folks that are, middle class folks, they're just getting by, right? Especially at a time like this, but the wealthiest in our society and the most powerful corporations paid their fair share of taxes in a way that they do in other capitalist, again, capitalist democracies. That's why I say this, because it's other capitalist democracies around the world. We would be able to fund that. We would be able to fund increased Medicaid. We would be able to fund Social Security for generations to come. It is a choice and a shell game. When Republicans say that we cannot afford to do that, we can afford to do that. We just choose instead to take healthcare away from folks and give tax breaks to billionaires.
Okay. A few more questions. Iowa ranks worst for the number of psychiatric beds relative to need.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what gaps, if any, do you think exist in our mental health and emergency services? And what is your goal for addressing them?
Yeah. You are 100% right to spot that. In addition to that, what I can tell you is that right now we are one of the very worst states in the country for health safety, hospital safety. Absolutely terrible. That is a big problem for us. Obviously, mental health. Another big problem, though, is the fact that we have made the choice to have some of the most restrictive, draconian laws and restrictions on women's healthcare. Women's healthcare is under attack in Iowa. We are one of the worst states in the country for how we're doing that. The choice of women as to what healthcare they're going to have and the choices they're going to make are between them and their doctors. We have made a decision to take those rights away from folks, and it's bad for everyone, right? It's terrible for women, but it's terrible for everyone else as well. The knock-on effects are absolutely terrible for our economy. People don't want to stay here. They don't want to put down roots. People's healthcare is under threat directly because they are at risk of getting harmed, of dying because of the decisions by far right Republicans to take away bodily autonomy, right? So this is an issue I'd be fighting on from day one as well. It is absolutely disgusting and wrong that far right Republicans have taken away folks' rights. We can and should be protecting people's rights and expanding investment in healthcare for all people in this district. There is no excuse for us to be doing that.
Mhm. Um, Climate change is increasingly affecting crop yields and insurance costs for farmers. How should Congress respond in a way that protects farmers and doesn't punish them?
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. So under the prior administration, the Department of Agriculture had put a bunch of programs in place to support farmers in that transition to make it economically feasible and effective for them. And this is a situation where we just cannot rely on the market, right? The market is going to mean that, well, if you see somebody else over there is cheating and pumping tons and tons and tons of fertilizer right into your farm, you're going to fall behind if you're not going to be as productive. We need government to intervene and to help farmers engage and be leaders, right? To be leaders in the green energy transition, to be leaders in making sure that we support an environment that's productive for everybody. And frankly, it's productive for farmers, right? If we destroy our soil, if we destroy our water, if we destroy our air, it's going to also be absolutely terrible for our agricultural economy and have a knock-on effect that not only harms our environment, but harms our entire economy, especially in a state where 22% of our state is dependent upon agriculture in terms of our economic output. So we should not be taking away those programs. We should be investing in and expanding those programs. We should be making sure that farmers get the support that they need to be able to transition to more environmentally friendly practices. We should help them engage in different types of crops, right? That are going to be productive and supportive, including food crops that are productive and supportive for the economy. We should be encouraging farmers in terms of efforts that they've done to put commitments into air and to solar power. We've been a leader in those spaces, and also the cuts from the big bad bill have made that even worse in terms of threatening our leadership in renewable energy. So farmers can lead the way, and we can support farmers, and we should support farmers to make sure that we have an environment that works for generations to come and an economy that works for all of us. And to that end, I was really proud to put out my rural revival plan about a month ago. We rolled it out at the Iowa Farmers Union annual convention. We got a phenomenal response to it. We were leading the way on making sure we're looking out for our rural communities. And we're excited to keep on fighting to make sure that we have a rural economy and a rural environment that works for all of us. So we encourage folks to look at our plan on our website. It is the most comprehensive plan of anybody running, not only in our district, but I think the state of Iowa right now, to make sure that we are leading the way in terms of rural economy, rural environment, and making sure that we have a rural Iowa that can be there for generations to come.
Mhm. Uh, One final question before we wrap up. If you could share one message directly with the voters about your candidacy, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, I want people to know why I'm running. I'm running because I'm seeing a world that is becoming rigged economically, rigged politically, where the fight is frankly less between the left and the right. I think there are a lot of folks that would like to say that it's that way, trying to divide people. It's really about right versus wrong. It's really about top versus everybody else. And if we do not unrig our system politically, if we not unrig our system economically in the next year, the next 2 years, the next 4 years, we might not have a chance to do it again. And we need folks that will earn every vote, that will talk to everybody, that will fight on those issues with honesty, grit, and integrity. I have committed myself to this. I fired myself in my law firm, and I'm running because I believe we need fighters that will speak truth to power, that will make the hard decisions. I'm committed to making those hard decisions, to doing everything I can to go everywhere, to earn every vote, and to make sure that we are speaking up and fighting on the issues that matter. I think that's how we win. I think that's how we change the system. We don't change the system by doing things the same way over and over and over again, and the stakes are too high to lose and to leave people behind. So I hope folks will consider supporting us. Join us online. We're Taylor for Iowa on all platforms. Follow us on those platforms. Sign up to volunteer. Donate if you can. Grateful for that as well. Again, I'm the only candidate that's joined End Citizens United's unrigged Washington pledge, refusing to take corporate PAC money. It's hard to run a campaign that way, but we believe it's worth it. We're going to keep fighting the fight, keep earning every vote, and excited to keep on talking with folks all across this district on our county tour that launched, our 20 county tour that launched today. So we haven't met you yet. We're looking forward to meeting you very soon.
Oh, you kind of already answered my last question, but where can listeners go if they want to learn more about your campaign? And are there any upcoming events you want to shout out?
Yeah, we're really excited to have folks engage with us on all platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Twitter, we're on Twitter now X, yeah, X, Blue Sky. My wife runs all our social media. My wife Megan, so shout out to Megan for everything she's doing. Hope folks will follow us on all of those platforms. Hope folks will come out to our events. You can find out on Mobilize where we're going to be next. But today we're going to West Branch. We're going to be going to a bunch of other places after that this month. I think 4, 5, 6 places already confirmed, more being confirmed after that, more to come in February. We are running a 20 county tour after having been to almost all the counties, a lot of them 2 to 5 times at this point, because we believe that we need fighters that will show up and talk to everybody, no matter where they're at. We know Miller Meeks is not showing up for us. She said she was only going to have a town hall when hell froze over, and then she held one town hall. We're committed to building on doing everything she's not doing, but also, frankly, doing things Democrats haven't been doing. Democrats have not been spending enough time in every part of this district. We're committed to earning every vote, talking to everyone. So yeah, folks can hopefully find out on Mobilize where we're coming next, and we'd love to see you there. Coming out, bring your friends and family, and ask the hard questions.
Taylor Wettach, thank you for sitting down with us.
Thank you so much for the chance to speak with you. Excited to keep on speaking with folks, and be safe out there, take care, and keep on fighting the good fight.